Hey guys, Toku Gamer here. Testing something different. Got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I decided to create a Super Quantal deck, as you can see from Fairy Alpha here. Been playing around with this deck with a friend. It's pretty good. It works out pretty well. Turbo's pretty fast into the ace that you need, Great Magnus. So I wanted to do a deck profile to show off how these guys work, essentially, in my deck. And not suggesting you should use these, but they work pretty well together, so let's get started. Okay, first off, three Super Quantal Reds. These guys basically, they basically search, well, they basically summon up back any Super Quantal monsters, and whenever you summon Fairy Alpha, you usually end up attributing him, because usually the opponent ends up choosing either blue or green most of the time, for me. So I use him to revive green and blue. So, and of course, his effect is that whenever there's no monsters on the field, he can be special summoned without anything. So he's pretty good. Then for the next part, I run 3 Super Quantal Greens. These guys are pretty good. If you get red or blue in your hand, you can basically just summon them right after him because of his effect where he can summon a Super Quant from the hand. Pretty good. Then you gotta run 3 blues because she basically searches for the deck for any card you need that relates to Super Quantals, especially for Magna Carrier and or the Magna Sword, which you might need in a really bad situation. And of course her secondary effect where she can send back 3 Super Quantal monsters into the deck, which will help you basically recycle the deck so you never ever deck out at all whatsoever. Then of course, 3 Super Quantal Fairy Alphans. These things will get you your last ranger essentially. Like let's say you have red and green. If you summon him, tribute him, you can get him either through red's effect or probably green's effect, which you can do. And then you can chain with Magna Carrier and then summon Great Magnus almost immediately. Okay, and then these are all the Super Quantal monsters essentially. For the other monsters, I run 3 Volcanic Shells. These guys are basically cannon fodder for Magna Carrier, because Magna Carrier requires you to discard 1 card for each summon of the mech beasts. So these things are essential because when they are sent to the graveyard, you can pay 500 and get another one once per turn. So basically, if you get one of these, you can get 2 of the mechs already. Okay, you got these. And then I run Maxi and a Summoner Monk. Maxi is just to draw more cards and to hopefully get to blue faster. Summoner Monk is, for me, it's more of a last-ditch effort. Like, if I don't have any Super Quantals in my hand, I can summon him, discard maybe Pot of Duality, and then boom, I can get out blue. I'm running a Zany Zebra mainly for the new Link stuff that's coming out because of his effect. Once per turn, I can declare any monster zone or spell and trap card zone, and if it's in the pendulum zone, it cannot be used whatsoever. So basically, you can stop your opponent completely with the links, and you can just continue on your way. And that's basically all for the monsters. Total about like 19 cards. Here we go for the spells. For spells, you absolutely have to run 2 Magna Carriers. These are the main key to your deck, especially with Super Quantals. These things, basically, once you summon one, you can discard a card to summon up a mech beast without having to spend 2 XYZ materials to do it. So they're basically godsend. And then once you get all the mech beasts, you send them to the graveyard, boom, you got Great Magnus with 6 materials, and your opponent can't do shit, and you basically win the match, essentially. Okay, and then to actually get those, you're going to need 3 terraformings, of course. This is crucial. You have to get this card either through terraforming or for blue. No matter what, you have to get this card because once you get it, you can just top deck and just fuck over your opponent. Then, of course, I run, of course, a Mystic Space Typhoon and Twin Twister. I like doing a combo of this. I don't do 2 of Twin Twisters or 2 of Mystic anymore. I like having a combo of both of them together because occasionally you don't want to waste a card, so I use Space Typhoon for that. And then if my opponent has too many cards in his backfield, I usually bring out Twin Twister just in case for that, and I discard like maybe a Volcanic Shell for that. Then of course there's the staple, Paw of Duality. One Dark Hole, because, you know, Dark Hole just in case if you start off with a really bad hand, you can always just Dark Hole everything and then just go from there. One Soul Charge, Last Ditch Effort as well with this card, because maybe you end up like your field is completely destroyed. You can use this and summon back all your Super Quantals and activate their effects, and then get another Great Magnus out and hopefully save the day. I also run One Day of Peace. This card is kind of weird to run, but it ensures that you don't take any damage and you get a card. So you can hopefully draw up blue or a Terraforming or a Magna Carrier or something. One Reasoning. Reasoning is really weird, but if you get it, it's amazing because you can essentially summon out red, blue, or white just anytime whatsoever. Like, basically, if you play this on your first turn, you can special summon at least one of them and then chain that with the other Rangers and hopefully get all three on the field and summon Magnus. Then, a 1-for-1. This is mainly for getting Fairy Alphen out as soon as possible for its tribute effect. I haven't really had to use this much, but when it usually comes up, it usually turbos out into Great Magnus. And then for the last spell, it's Emergency Teleport for blue. If you don't draw blue in your hand, this basically gets blue out for you in time for you to basically turn it into Mech Beast's Grand Pulse. And that's it for all the spell cards. For the trap cards, we start off with a Scrap Iron Scarecrow, Bottomless Trap Hole, because that's a staple. Scrap Iron Scarecrow, I usually use it as just a defense mechanism just in case if I still haven't drawn all my Super Quantals, which really isn't often, but just in case, you know. Then Sakuretsu Armor. This is a staple I usually keep in because it's really good, so keep that. And then, of course, another staple, Compulsory Evacuation Device. This thing is really OP, and I can see why they limited it down to 1, because it is really useful for when your opponent decides to summon up a really powerful extra type, like let's say, I don't know, like a 5-headed dragon or something. You could just send that back to the, to the extra deck. Threatening Roar delays the battle so that you can draw your Super Quantal. Mirror Force, of course, really useful, takes out everything. Then Solemn Warning, of course, staple. The one card that isn't really a staple that I run is Super Quantal Mech Sword. This thing, when you detach it, when you use it, essentially what happens is your Super Quantal Mech will essentially get 100 for each level. So if you equip this on the Great Magnus, he gains 1200, going up to 48. And then during a battle phase, you can send this to the graveyard. Boom, he can attack 3 times and just OTK your opponent. Alright, that's all for the main deck. For the extra deck, I run 2 Great Magnuses, of course, because you never know when the first one might go down because of maybe a Lava Golem or a Kaiju or something, just in case. 2 Super Quantal Mech Beast Magnaligers. These things are really good. Basically, they're basically essentially a trap hole, kind of. It's like, oh, your opponent summons a really powerful monster, boom, detach, destroy it, and it's pretty powerful. It has 2600 attack, but only uses effect usually absolutely necessary, because once you detach, they cannot attack whatsoever, so you got to be really careful about how you do it. 2 greens, 2 Ouroboroses. These things are basically Book of Moons, so you absolutely need them just in case if your opponent decides to pull some bullshit move. Then, of course, 2... where the hell's my other one? Well, I had a second one, but I don't know where it is, so... Oh, here it is. Yeah. 2 blues. These things are essentially a... they're basically Mystic Space Typhoons, so let's say your opponent really relies on maybe like a field card or a trap card or something that helps them bring out more monsters. You can just detach, take it out, and then you're basically safe for another turn. And yeah, that's basically how this deck goes for the extra deck. And then for the side deck, I'm running, let's see, I have mainly just extras, but Summoner, Monk, Maxi, Full Force Strike, because this thing is actually really good for your Super Quantals. Essentially, you can attack a monster and it will destroy it, but there'll be no damage whatsoever. So, usually that works, 2 of them. And then 1 Super Quantal Alpha Spike. This is if you really need something like, say, like basically this is like an interrupted Kaiju sleep, but it's not as good because essentially it allows the opponent to summon up any extra deck monster that they choose, so they might end up something that could screw you over. I've used this only maybe 3-4 times tops, and each time they've kind of fucked me over, so I tend to put this in the side deck unless I know my opponent is going to pull something. Extra Pod Duality just in case, and of course an extra sword. Basically, how this deck works is that you have to turbo immediately into Great Magnus, but once you get it, you're basically safe, because this thing is the ace of your, like the ace of your deck essentially, because with 6 materials, it essentially, you can stop your opponent from searching, which is a key aspect to any deck whatsoever. Once you get this out, you basically won. Alright, and that's basically the deck, so thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more deck profiles, and yeah, thank you.